So if I told any black and white OU player back in 2011 that Terrakion would fall to PU in the year 2024, I think they'd call me a word that would get this channel canceled in current year. But that, among with several terrible, just no good, very bad ships have occurred today. We got the DLC2 mega tier ships happening. We're going to talk about them. And there is, oh my god, there's a lot to take in. And of course, if you've been enjoying the content as of late, make sure that you go and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be laddering an awful lot this month. We got a ton of fun stuff to try. A ton of stuff that has no reason to be in the tier it's in. And so that, you know what, that kind of content, you know, that puts a smile on your face. Stick around for the ride, subscribe. So of course, here's how those quick shifts work. Any mon introduced in DLC 2, this is how the usage needed to work out for it to drop to where it went. So again, this is what Terrakion had OU-wise. Mr. Boulder took away all its hopes and dreams. And there's a whole bunch to go into. So of course, these are all the OU relevant shifts up at the top, and they include everything that was a DLC 2 quick drop. Then we have like UU relevant shifts here. Then we have like RU relevant shifts. I don't know what happened here. Then we got NU relevant shifts. We of course dropped an atomic bomb on PU in terms of what we sent their way. I don't even know where to start. I guess what we'll do is I'll start down here because this is based on the meta we just had. And apparently NU lost both Hisui and Decidueye and Chansey to RU. Which, Chansey, I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know what happened with that one. But Hisui and Decid, the little snippet of usage that Marty ran around, I think it was December 18th and 19th, it did have Hisui and Decidueye rise into RU, so this is something kind of expected. Of course, the mon was a pretty decent defogger for balance builds. Just overall very bulky. Had Roost, had Knock. Triple Arrows is a pretty silly move. So losing it kind of sucks, but also it's going to be kind of hard to see just how much it sucks until we look at the entire shift. And then Chansey leaving, you know, who cares? Like, it wasn't that great of a mon anymore. I still think it was one of the more meta relevant mons, somewhere in those A ranks, A minus maybe. But frankly, Raja Spam, Palisand, even like Dawn, Duraludon, these are all mons that I just enjoy using a lot more by this point meta. And now, of course, we can look at what dropped to NU from RU, just what they sent us. Politoed goes back to NUBL. This just means that, assuming, again, we do continue with our plan of full reset the tier and unban everything in NUBL, that means Drizzle's back. So, I mean, y'all know what that means. I'm not going to spell out for y'all. Chandelure drops, and I mean, this is kind of where I wish we still had Chansey. Now, you'd get tricked if it was a choice item set, but it just, this mon's scary. Chandelure! Oh my god, I still remember back when Black and White was the current gen. And technically, we had data on all of the unreleased hidden abilities, and so we knew Chandelure was supposed to have Shadow Tag. And it never got released in Gen 6, they gave it Infiltrator instead. But Chandelure now being all the way down in NU is kind of wild, and I'm really not sure what the tier has in terms of defensive counterplay. There aren't bulky water types. There's not. And there's not really, you know, we don't have Chansey anymore. We don't have a Blissey in the tier. I mean, we have Umbreon. And of course, Chandelure's kind of slow. So there's that. Diancie probably checks it, seeing that it dropped as well with it. I don't know how much Spec Shadow Ball does. I'm sure it's a very illegal amount. But that mon definitely poses a large threat to most of the tier. I'm excited to use it, though. I'm excited for every single drop. Even something like Cloyster, which I think is going to be banned very quickly. We will have some votes around halfway through the week because we've got like a ton of tournaments running. We're trying to, like, you know, you got to tier on the fly a little bit. Everything will get re-looked at later on, so it's not like these mons are gone forever. But Cloyster sounds very, very silly. I think terastallizing with it will be very, very potent. But also just, it feels like it's better than Blastoise. And again, I just look at Cloyster, I'm like, what even stops, bro? I don't know, but I'm sure we'll see a lot of it. Diancie's gonna be a great stealth rocker. I don't know how good those setup sets pose to be. Because remember, this mod last gen even ran some of those like Calm Mind Iron Defense sets with Draining Kiss. I think even like Diamond Storm. Actually, no, it was Body Press because you don't need Diamond Storm when we got Iron Defense. I wonder how good those are with Terra. Because that sounds really vile. Imagine Terra Water on that with Diancie. So that'll probably be something I try a little bit. But in general, too, I'm just happy to have Diancie in the tier because, yeah, it's a more unique Stealth Rock setter, and it gives you a little bit more of options with how you want to build out your defensive cores on Bounds builds, which I always find fun. Dragalge back in NU maybe won't be broken this gen. Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of funny because I feel like the biggest reason Dragalge was banned last gen in NU was because the substitute sets ended up being really, really good in the meta. Because you had all of this Vaporeon, all of this Mantine. You just had a ton of usage of these bulky water types that had absolutely nothing they could do to you once you subbed up. You just subbed up versus them, and they cried. We don't have that going on in this meta, though. And so something like Specs is still going to be really, really oppressive. But I don't know if Dragalge itself will be just as broken. And keep in mind, too, we have, like, Umbreon now. And Umbreon, it's not like you can't beat Umbreon. It's still, like, another option for something that could pivot around Dragalge and maybe isn't as exploitable. And maybe just Terra with Dragalge and a new sub on Umbreon and it's Jover. But again, that's projecting out a meta that I don't know yet. So Espeon also drops down. I keep it a buck with y'all. I don't even think Espeon will be that good. Maybe Terra makes CM sets better. But I think it's definitely going to be a Terra merchant. This mon's going to be very reliant on terastallizing, have some sort of coverage for the steals. And I mean, yeah, that's kind of it. I think it's still going to be very, very revenge killable with the litany of physical Scarfers we've got going on in NU. You got to deal with things like Umbreon, Copperajah, Bronzong, even though it dropped. You got to deal with all of these guys still. You got to deal with like Sylveon as well as another Protect Wish user going on. Maybe something like Overquill could run some bulkier spiking sets. Could give it a little bit of issue. So yeah. Like with a lot of these mons, I do think with Espeon, a big question will be just how good does Terra make it? I'm gonna see. Iron Thorns finally dropping to NU as well. This was a mon that RU users probably would have told you for like 5 months now should have been NU. And in previous months, I was definitely more leery of it because you have to remember Dragon Dance with like booster energy and maybe Terra Grass. Projected to be very, very difficult to stop. The mon had like perfect coverage for what you would have, maybe Theorymon could stop it. And when you would look at its stats relative to a lot of NU, the question just kind of be like, okay, what really stops them? Nowadays, I think maybe there's more going on that can check it. Like you got like Mudsdale, you got Gligar, you got Palisand. Yes, again, Terra Grass idea still applies here, but at least you force it. I don't even think it one-shots any of these mons either, so do that as you will. But also, the mon's very slow, so maybe Booster Energy fixes that up. I don't know, though, if you're able to get a speed boost with it. I'd have to check. I don't have PS open right now, sadly. But if you can, then okay, there's that. If you can't, then, of course, it remains kind of revenge killable. You're going to have to be reliant on screens. Maybe you have to Terra to not get revenge killed, and obviously that goes both ways. Opponent can predict the defensive Terra and clock you with a different move. So maybe you try and Terra Grass in front of a Water Poro so that it goes for Terra Fight CC and sends you back to Mars. Things like that are always interesting. Overquill drops, and Overquill is very interesting because of Drizzle also being... Again, I'm assuming we have not decided to change plans and are still putting in UBL mons. So, technically I should look at what else is in NUBL too. There's a Titan and Dreadnought. Do with that info as you will. But Overquill dropping with potentially Drizzle, of course that gives it a great niche as a Rain Sweeper. We already have Tornadus in the tier. Rain looks like it could be very, very dominant, but also, like I mentioned earlier, I'm very interested on the idea of utility sets. Because, yeah, the mon could do something very similar to what H-Quill has done in previous metagames, where you've got a pretty good defensive typing. This time you can run leftovers, though, which is nice. And if I'm not mistaken, it got Pain Split. I know regular Quill did, and I want to say that H-Quill did as well, meaning Overquill would. It sounds pretty decent, especially if you're trying to project out checks to things like Espeon, even like Indeedee. And I'm going to have to look at the other shifts, of course, but if Psychic Terrain is ever looking like it could become meta, you're going to want to look towards checks for Indeedee. Staraptor dropped it in you. I'm getting no. No, I don't want you here. Go away. This mon was known as being the perpetually UUBL Pokemon for, like, what, a decade? And I think last gen it was RUBL, and now it looks like it could be NUBL, or even just NU. It's still super early. Who knows? Maybe Staraptor... Maybe it ends up being a mon that struggles because removal in the meta sucks, and there's enough Pokemon faster than it that also just pop it. It has no bulk. Regardless, I'm scared, but... time will tell. And then again, Thunder is dropping to NU. Now, if you told me back when I was playing Black and White OU as the current gen in 2011 that Thunderous 13 years in the future would fall to NU, I would call you stupid and say you were lying to me. This is very, very funny to see. This Pokemon having fallen so far from grace, especially because I remember last gen, in UU, Thunderous Incarnate was viewed as better than Thunderous T, as it got banned before the latter did. And I believe Therian was banned later on. But this mon was somehow better back then and now is worse. So I don't know what happened. But he finds its way down here. And again, I look at the counterplay. It's not like we don't have any. We've got things like Umbreon that can check, Sylveon can check, Gligar can check. I was going to say Mudsdale, but I'm sure Grass Knot breaks your back in 20 different spots or something like that. See, it's annoying talking about these when I haven't looked at all of this as well. Because, like, you know, like, for example, up here, we can see Registeel dropped. Registeel, technically, I'm sure, checks. Probably not, actually. Flygon checks. There you go. There's a few more mentions of checks. But it's still kind of hard for me to think of that mod as NU, you know? I feel like it's going to be much like the Tornadus pivot set that you saw me use a lot and run into a lot on ladder. I think we're going to see something very, very similar to that Thunderous will do. Except Thunderous, of course, has a more reliable stab move you could throw out. Thunderbolt, you know, that can't miss. Bleak Windstorm can. And it also has the option for stab when it's pivoting. I think you'll still probably run U-turn. I think U-turn, knock, Thunderbolt, and then any of like Grass Knot, Focus Blast, and Taunt. That sounds like a pretty good set. But if you want, you can run Volt Switch instead and just probably always run Grass Knot so you have the move to clock a lot of the ground types. I guess it's just an issue of, okay, if Gligar remains the most common ground, I don't know, does knock into Grass Knot really do enough for you in that matchup? Tough to say. And then, as per usual, I'll talk about what fell into PU. Unfortunately, this time there's a lot more to speak about. But here, too, we got this going on here. Duraludon rising out of PUBL up to NU. This pretty reasonable. A Violate Dura is very, very strong in the... I don't even know what to call the current NU meta or the left past NU meta. But I've been talking about it eternally, and I'm like, dude, I honestly think Iron Fist Duraludon is borderline broken because teams really don't have great ways of stopping it. So, of course, people were curious anyway. I'll try to use the new Eviolite Duraludon, and it's worked out very well in NU. Palisand returning to NU, very, very logical. I mean, I even made it a point to say in a lot of my videos, like, hey, Palisand is very, very good. Tried using it more recently in videos too, just to make sure I gave it a little bit more of a spotlight, because I believe Palisand remains just a great alternative to Gligar. You're able to run Palisand plus Klefki builds, you know, as opposed to the Kaparaja plus Gligar builds. It just lets you get different angles to team building, and of course, Palisand back in the Snorlax meta, hey, it was a pretty good stopper to Lax, especially if you teched how Danny did, chilling water on your set. So cool, mon. And Dawn's kind of the same way, except I think a lot of its viability did come from stopping Snorlax. You still retain a lot of it in this more recent meta, too, because you still check, like, Delphox, Salazzle, Tornadus, for example. All of these are super prevalent Pokemon. I just think with Dawn, team building is a little bit weirder, because I don't think the cores are as obvious. I think a lot of the time with Dawn, you end up with a Steelless team, and that runs into issues against Duraludon. The Dawns interacting with each other. But yeah, I would say that Duraludon kind of messes up a lot of Rhydon builds very successfully. So that's a little bit of an issue to the mon, but I still thought it was very, very good. And now, I'll do again the quick rundown of why things dropped out of NU into PU. Some of these I will say like nothing about. Others I will say quite a lot about. And just before I get into this, a very weird observation. Why was Sensu already unbanned from PU, but regular Oricorio wasn't? That, I think someone forgot to announce. Anyway, Oricorio, regular Oricorio dropping out of NU. Admittedly, I do think this mon should have been NU. It just didn't get usage on ladder. That's really all there is to it. Obama Snow dropping because people stopped using snow teams a long time ago. Unfortunately, not, you know, they didn't stop using them before Obama Snow could rise to NU. It just doesn't really have any niche, though, outside of maybe some Veil Jetpack stuff, but that never really picked up in the meta past week 1. Hisui Braviary kind of struggling because I think there's so many options for flying type / psychic type setup sweeper. And if you think about it, you had all the Oricorios still. You had Venomoth as well as just another mon that took that idea. Frostmoth took that idea as well. Bronzong, if you're looking at bulky psychic types, you had that as competition. Delphox, more offensive psychic type setup sweeper that didn't take maybe as many turns to get going. And I think that's really just the message with Hisui Braviary. How many turns does it take to become that threat? And when you've got to deal with Umbreon and Chansey and Copper Raja on a lot of teams, it can become difficult to find those setup opportunities that actually lead to winning a game. And the Sheer Force stuff was good. I just never really picked up. Bronzong finally drops out of NU down to PU, which it feels shocking, but it honestly doesn't feel shocking in the same message, because I don't think Bronzong is I don't think it's a top 2 steel type in the tier. I don't even think it's a top 3. I would rate all of Copper Raja, Klefki, and Duraludon ahead of it. I think Duraludon's a far more potent Iron Press sweeper, and then I think Keys and Copper are just better defensively for hazard setting. Maybe Heatproof Bronzong wasn't experimented enough with, and we needed to try out more Bronzong plus Gligar. But to me, I think this mon losing Toxic was huge because it made non-setup sets far less potent. You just lost a lot of your consistent damage, and Nightshade, I'm gonna be honest, man, nobody's scared of Nightshade, dude. Nobody's scared of Nightshade. And despite having great coverage, you never really make use of it. It's not like you're a strong mon. So I think it just ended up suffering from, the other steals are better this gen. Decidueye dropping to PU, kind of again, just a matter of it stopped getting usage. I think Hisuian Decid is what people started defaulting to if they wanted a defogging Decidueye, because the bulk overall is a little bit better. And we kind of saw SD Decid completely fall off the face of the earth, which is interesting to me because I don't even think it's really necessarily that much worse in what meta we had by the end. I mean, I think it still worked out decently well and actually had kind of the nice niche of Aqua Poros not being a great revenge killer to you. So that's a bit of an interesting drop, but I think it still makes sense and reflects the new meta overall. Diplin just never really saw new usage. Dunsparce also kind of really didn't see much usage this month. I do think a decent amount of it is due to Snorlax. That mon, of course, is just better, and as a result, the Dunsparce was not going to see use. But even after Lax's ban, we saw maybe one usage of the Dunsparce in a tournament, and I don't recall it doing much of anything. I mean, again, Serene Grace Body Slam stuff still's annoying as piss to deal with, but I think that's really all it ended up being, just annoying. And it doesn't help too, like, Palossand picking up in usage, right? That kind of put a damper on those coil sets quite a bit. And in the Calm Mind sets, I think just perpetually we're struggling to break through Copper Raja without a lot of assistance. Electro to Sui drops. I think a lot of it's because the competition between Jolteon, Rotom, Mow, and it felt just so much more pronounced this past month that they all ate at each other's usage. You'll notice one of them did not drop, and I think, if anything, it was maybe the wrong one. Frostmoth drops because nobody uses this mon, and it is trash. Please, stop using it. I mean, again, it's too slow to really sweep without two boosts, and with how bad its physical bulk is, and with how good physical Scarfers are, it often was just not that hard to revenge kill. And it always needed to have Terra if it wanted to break past Raj. And again, Copper Raj is just everywhere. So that's a bit of an issue. Glass drops because just like some of these other mons, Decidueye, that's the one I really want to point out. Glass just kind of vanished this past month. And I don't even think it was necessarily all that much worse. People just stopped using it because there wasn't really as much reason to, because we got better Pokemon. Like, if you're going to use HO, you weren't going to have to resort to something like Glassed anymore. Now, I will say Hariyama dropping feels very, very random, because this mon is still quite good. Assault Vest remains quite nice, especially as an offense deterrent, since you can stack multiple forms of priority on it. Bulk Up remains also very good. Like, with Wheezing completely out of the tier, there's not much that were to stop it. You could say, like, Palisand's kind of annoying, but if they run Scorching Sands and you have Guts on Bulk Up, then you just bonk it. I don't know. I feel like I could have stayed. Lycanroc drops. I think this kind of reflects HO falling off after the first week or so, because I don't recall seeing many hyper offense builds. I mean, obviously Frost Loss is an option for another HO hazard setter, but I still felt like it was a little bit better, so one I don't get. Mismagius falls off the face of the earth because, yeah, the Copper's everywhere, Wax was everywhere, Umbreon is still everywhere, Keys is at least annoying and was also everywhere. Every Scarf or Revenge killed it because this Mon has very unserious bulk. Mon, yeah, she fell off. Oricorio Sensu drops. This one I actually do agree with. I really wasn't ever moved by Sensu. And I think when you're talking about Oricorio's needing to Terra, this one actually felt like it kind of did. The issue when you compare it to the regular Oricorio, and even Pom Pom, is its typing is a lot more difficult to get to work out without use of Terra, because it just doesn't give you a lot for setting up. Ghost Flying is quite laughably bad defensively, whereas you look at something like Fire Flying, well, you can set up on Copper. You can set up on Klefki even if you want to burn your Terra. You just turn into a ground type. Now, I guess you could say you could set up on Klefki too with Sensu, but you don't have the safe switch into a potential attack. It's not like Klefki's doing a ton, but it's still doing more than it would to bail. And of course, setting up on Raj is the hugest one. You don't set up on Palisanda safely because you're weak to go, so you feel pressure to Terra there. You don't set up on, like, Hisuian Deciduous safely because you have to Terra or else get clocked by knockoff repeatedly. That's really just, I would say, the big difference between Fire Oricorio and Ghost Oricorio. That initial typing really does carry this Mon, and, like I mentioned, Pom Pom a good bit further. Piloswine drops. We mentioned it back when Piloswine was, like, rising up the VR, but a lot of Piloswine's niche did come from it being a Jolteon stopper in a metagame where Jolteon was just rampant. And, yeah, that's not really the case anymore, so Piloswine fell off. Hisui Quill finally falls to PU after overstaying his welcome in Inu. To put it bluntly, it's sucked for months. Rotom drops out of Inu to PU. Again, I'm like, Rotom, H-Trode, and Jolteon all eating away at each other's usage. One of them stayed in Inu, but I think probably the worst of them all. Again, the answer was Jolteon that stayed. Rotom, again, it's just competition. There's so many good electric pivots. And getting Pain Split back still hasn't really returned it to a level of dominance that you'd maybe expect it to. Sandaconda drops to PU, of course, because it's just been out of the meta for so long, man. Gligar stole its lunch. Palisade stole its lunch again. And then Mudsdale and Rhydon, like, gave it a swirly on the way out of the cafeteria. Alola Slash dropping, same reason as Bombasnow, Hail never picked up. Shaman drops because this mon has not been used at all this past month. I mean, there's so many fire types everywhere, and yeah, you got Earth Power, but they pivot around your Seed Flare. A lot of them are faster, so they just dunk on you. And I feel... This is where you feel the difference between, like, Shaman Regular and Shaman Sky. The Seed Flare drops do not come as often as you need them to. The mon is not very strong, even with a boosting item, at least in my experience. So it's been very inconsistent as a wall breaker. And then I look at options like Meloetta is just better, where I don't have to rely on hacks to just break you through with, like, these specs boosted Psyshocks and Terra Blasts. Just other mons feel more straightforward to use. And the Healing Wish stuff, we just not really seen it been able to enable anything like we had last shift where, you know, on Sand Teams, for example, Shaman had points where it was quite good at enabling those and getting them to really take off. Shifty drops because nobody uses it. Nobody uses Sun, nobody uses Tailwind. Trash mon. It offers very little. It's just, frankly, a worse mon than the other types of mons you see in Inu right now. Typhlosion has never been good in Inu this gen. Venomoth is linked basically to HO, and like we said, HO just hasn't really been good this month past the first week, so Venomoth also fell off. Maybe we see some exploration of, like, specs. Maybe we see people just try to force Venomoth onto, like, balance or bulky offense. Maybe that somehow makes it better. Until then, El Bozo. Vigavolt drops. Vigavolt trash. Just don't use it. Use the different electric types. Use ones that are not base 43 speed. And then Wo-Chien drops because for the umpteenth time. Are you telling me they gave a defensive Pokemon the Grass Dark typing? I don't care that I could Terra. It's still not that good after a Terraman. Very, very disappointing Pokemon. Now let's get to the fun part. Let's look at all the things OU gave us. I'm going to start with what OU actually gave us, because I think it's so lackluster when you look at it compared to PU, where I would say more Mons fell to PU that are relevant than NU. And I will definitely laugh off some of these Pokemon as unviable, because I just don't think they project to be any decent. So, also because I don't want this video to go on for another hour. So I need to, I need to save some time. I got work soon, man. So Bastiodon drops to NU. This won't get used. We have far better steel types. Flygon fell to NU, and I am very curious to see what happens with Flygon this gen. It's historically been, like, RU's mascot. But Flygon lost Roost and Toxic this gen. I think it even lost Defog. And then gained Stealth Rock. Like, that's basically been the trade-off for moves. And this hurts utility Flygon a ton, and that had consistently been one of Flygon's best sets, because you had a pretty nice defensive profile. You were pretty fast as well, so you're one of those, you know, you didn't have to be just a, you know, 252 HP, 252 defense, impish nature type thing. No, you had some speed, you posed still some sort of revenge-killing threat, even to certain mid-tier speed wall breakers. But this gen, you don't have Roost to keep switching into things, so I think Flygon's bulk would get exposed far more quickly if it tried to take on that role. No Defog isn't too big a deal when you say it kept Stealth Rock, but again, since those sets are pretty passive, you kind of miss the feeling of having Toxic. Although, at the same time, maybe you don't, because you still were going to want, like, Roost, EQ, U-Turn, and then a utility move. It's just, I think Scarf Flygon will probably be really good still, because that set really didn't lose anything. You still have Earthquake, Outrage, U-Turn, and then, like, Fire Punch or something, or Thunder Punch, or Stone Edge, whatever move you need last. And then Banded, probably, like, the same deal. Dragon, it's like, I think those offensive Flygon sets remain very good, and maybe they do just bring it right back up to RU. But for everything else, I think Utility Flygon is looking like it's on life support. Hitmontop. This mon will rot away in NU the entire generation. I already know. This mon's gonna stay NU. It will never see the light of day in PU. Because for some reason, everyone loves it. And I know that reason. It's because it has Fake Out, and it has Intimidate, and they throw in Assault Fist on it, and oh my god, it's the most annoying mon ever. It doesn't matter that it did nothing through the battle. It was annoying. Lapras. I have no clue if there's any potential for this. It's a water immunity with the psychic noise. Maybe there's something there, but I don't think so. Not Lapras, Meganium. No. Regigigas. No. But what's hilarious is Regigigas fell to NU and Registeel fell to PU. So we'll talk about that. And it's Scrafty and NU. This is a mon I could very easily see banned within a week or two. Because Scrafty last gen in SS and U, when we have multiple good fairy types, is already annoying enough. We have Vileplume too, and the mon still finds a way to be borderline, like, ban-worthy. Now Terra. And it just strikes fear into the heart of me. I don't know, man. I try to send out my Sylveon to revenge kill a Scrafty, and then it turned into a Steel type. And then I lost. So we'll see what happens with Scrafty and NU. I think bulk up sets are going to be very, very triflesome, very similar to Snorlax in last month's metagame. And yeah, look out for Scrafty. I think Dragon Dance actually also sounds really fun this gen though. Yeah, you're slow as hell. It's Frostmoth syndrome, right? But now you can have stab on a lot of those random coverage moves. I think that actually sounds pretty cool. And now we'll drop. Now we'll look at the drops of PU, I should say. Also, a couple mons here that I'm really sad we didn't get are Entei, Whimsicott, Rhyperior, and Raikou. Raikou and Entei were originally projected to fall to NU, and they just ended up not. Rhyperior, same thing. And in Whimsicott, I just want an NU. I love Whimsicott. Give me my mon back. Also, I'll once again, just in case any of y'all didn't understand what I was doing earlier, yeah, Hoopa Unbound is an RU. That boy knocking on our door, and I am not ready. Halloween was a couple months ago, please. So now, well, of course, with PU2, there's gonna be a lot more shit months. Alchemy, I just don't think it's any better than any other bulky setup Super in NU, I'm sorry. Blossom, this is not ADV. Dugong, this is not ADV. Dodrio, this is not Oras. Embor, now this one's interesting, because Embor got some moves. If I'm not mistaken, it got like knockoff and drain punch this gen, while retaining all of those insane reckless boosted stab moves. I don't know if Embor is going to be broken again in NU. It's not like our lack of bulky water types really ever mattered, because it could always just wild charge past things like Slowbro in Gen 7 NU anyway. And we actually do have some like good physical walls that should check it this gen. But I'm kind of scared of it. Those bulky sets actually sound very, very decent. Like, the Mon gets Sucker Punch, too. So you could do like Drain Punch, knockoff Sucker Punch bulk with Terra Dark, and literally just cosplay as a Scrafty with priority. I think that sounds really fun. Fortunately, then you wouldn't really have a useful ability, but hey man, who cares? I think we'll see Bandit once again be an absolute menace to society. It might just two-shot everything in NU. But, I will say this. Hazard Control still looks kind of cringe at a glance. Like, I really don't think we got much in the way of Hazard Control. So the one limiter would be, or will be, how much recoil are you taking, and can you actually withstand it? Drain Punch is a nice buff to where you could maybe offset some of that, if you want to just use that as like a filler last move. So we'll see. I think Embor could just end up being limited because it's not the fastest thing ever, and Hazard Control is a real thing that it has to try and work out. Because if you're taking too much chip through hazards and recoil, I mean, yeah, you just won't be that good. Executor, yeah, this is not Gen 5. Granbull, this is not Gen 4. Hitmonchan, this is not Gen 3, I'll say. This is not Gen 3. Lantern, I don't think Lantern will be very good either. You know, I could say this is not Gen 6. But for what it's worth, it's probably the best bulky water type that NU has access to now, from like especially bulky side. So there's that. I mean, do with that as you will. It compresses water resist plus electric immunity into one slot, which is kind of cool, I guess. Anyhow, Magmortar, there's too many good fire types. I don't think Magmortar has a niche. Use Delphox, you know, use Salazzle, use Fire Poros. I think even that one's okay. Malamar, for similar reasons to Scrafty, Malamar could be very, very dangerous. Again, what happens when I send my Fairy type out or my Bug type out and he becomes Steel type? I don't know. I don't want to learn either. Also, Vileplume lost Worry Seed this gen, so I can't even try and like tech Worry Seed Plume onto my team to counter contrary Malamar. This is sad. This is a sad existence. Meowstic, lol. Use something else for screens. Plusle and Minun. This is not Gen 3. Regice. You've not been good in NU once. I will not listen to the people talking about Subcharge Beam. No. That set was not good last gen. Get out of here. Regirock, maybe there's something to Regirock. Because again, I mean, it gets Iron Press. Can't be that bad, right? Mono Rock kind of sucks as defense typing, but oh, look at me now. Now I'm a Steel type. I'm Registeel. What are you gonna do now? Oh, I'm Regi Water now. It turned into a Water type. So maybe we managed to find something with that. You know, it's super bulky. You got Stealth Rock. If anything, I'm just not sure how it, you know, interacts with things like Gligar and Palossand, which I would imagine are better at rocking. I think really a lot of it will come down to Iron Press. Registeel's a similar way. Because keep in mind, Registeel lost both Toxic and Seismic Toss this gen. Two of its best ways of making progress. So now you're stuck with using moves like, say, Iron Head and Body Press, or Earthquake. And these have uses, of course. Iron Head, I mean, it actually lets you hit fairies for stab damage. That's good. Earthquake dissuades things like Delphox, Salazzle from trying to exploit you as much. And then body press is just generally a good move. I'm wondering, I've been talking in NU Discord, because again, Registeel is a mon that we had projected to fall to us, and of course it did. And I was wondering, like, are we gonna see a lot of curse? Could we see like something with, you know, again, Terra, maybe water, for example, and do like curse rest talk Reggie, or even curse rest 2 attacks? Maybe we see Iron Press on Registeel. I think we got some options there. Sceptile falling, of course, no Shed Tail, but we have NDD Male with expanding force. So Sceptile with terrain being back is definitely very, very potentially good. I'm excited to try it. Terrakion drops to Inu. Honestly, pretty bad Pokemon. I'm kidding. Why? Bro, like, it's not, I can't even cope and say, like, Gligar is a check. It's gonna Terra Blast Ice me into the Shadow Realm. Same with Palisand, dude. This is so sad. I'm going to use Terrakion, though. I will be using I'm going to be using Choice Banded Terrakion with Terra Rock. Or probably Terra Ice. I'm going to blast the ever-loving hell out of those Glygars. And they're going to feel my Gen 5 OU Wrath. It's going to be so great, dude. Toucannon drops. Lamau. Vileplume drops. Again, I don't know if I don't think Terra actually, like, breaks Vileplume. I think it just adds another layer to it. Especially the growth sets. So that'll be something to look out for. Something of note is Vileplume did lose Infestation this generation. And I know some people were a little bit scared of Trapper sets with Terra, wondering if that increased the range of Pokemon Plume could trap. It doesn't have the ability to trap now, so that at least is... That honestly is a pretty big knock to Vileplume. Because that's one of the biggest reasons people wanted it banned in Sword and Shield in you. So, we'll see how that goes. Plume could become very, very broken in short order. Plume could also end up just being another good Pokemon this gen. Definitely, I imagine it'll never drop below like A- or A on the VR, but maybe it ends up being broken. Virizion drops. Pretty cool Pokemon to have around. There's no Talonflame this gen. Well, there is, just not in NU. There's no Noivern or Talonflame in NU right now. So, those are 2 of the most common mons we've had in the past. Noivern for like a month, but still. To check Virizion, we don't have them right now. Still got other mons that are faster in Vengkill. Salazzle's going to be the one that should jump to everyone's mind immediately. But maybe Virizion could roll up in NU and start doing something. I think it makes Acrobatics on Gligar far more appealing too. Because, hey, I know Gligar's weak, but hey, that's quad effective. That's quad super effective. It's pretty good. And then the last mon's Obstrika. And unfortunately, this is not Black and White or Oras. Get out of my sight, you stupid zebra. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed. I hope y'all are ready for this tier shift. This is really funny to see here, Cincino and like Comfy only falling to UU. Oh boy. Oh my god, look at UU. What the hell? Manaphy? Velades? Keldeo? Iron Moth? Christ. Also, they were really wanting Landorus T to drop, and of course it didn't. What do you think this is? You think you're allowed nice things? No. I'm saying, give me my king. Give me my glorious king back. Give me my glorious king and Sonora back in NU. Oh, this is gonna be a great year. I can already tell. January 1st, man. Our new goal is 10k subscribers. If we could hit that... Hey, man, imagine we hit 10k before, like, even half the year's passed. Wouldn't that be wild? I hope y'all are ready. Because I sure am. Catch you next time. Peace.